Hey everyone, today we're going to finally put a stop to the Road to GM series, which if you didn't know is the main series of this channel, and actually the main reason why I created this channel as well, and just overall a series that I just love and it's really fun to record it. But today we finally got the whole Portugal's Masters tournament covered, and we're going to be looking at an opening, which I haven't done in a while. Today we're looking at the Queen's Gambit, how to play it. This video will be probably a bit long. So I start with d4, and black goes d5. There's many options here, but the Queen's Gambit goes after d5 and c4. This is the base position, the starting position of the Queen's Gambit. Now, there's three main moves here. There's e6, which is the Queen's Gambit declined. There's c6, which is the Slav. And there's d takes c4, which is the Queen's Gambit accepted. I should note briefly that knight f6 is an inaccurate move, quite instructively, because we can trade on d5 and go e4, and after knight f6, just knight c3. And unlike defenses like the Grunfeld, where black sometimes does this, or I mean, in the Grunfeld he always does this, he's already got a bishop on g7 ready to strike at d4 with c5. But here black just lost moves, just lost tempos, and gave white the center for no reason. So this is just not a good move, not a good approach. So firstly, let's cover the Queen's Gambit declined. Now here there's two moves, knight f3, knight c3. I like knight c3, so that's the move we're going to be looking at today, because in case you didn't know, this is sort of my channel and stuff. So here there's basically two ways to play. There's knight f6, which is by far the most common move, and there's c5, which is the tower rush defense. Then there's other moves. There's c6, which transposes to the Slav, and there's not knight d7. There's bishop e7, which unless you are above 20, let's say 2400, this move will transpose to knight f6. So let's start with that, knight f6. There's some ways to play here as white. I'm going to show you my favorite, which is c takes d5. And now again, knight takes d5 is a bad move because of this, for the same reason. So e takes d5 is played, and we go bishop g5. We develop this bishop nicely. And after bishop e7, we go e3, c6, bishop d3, knight d7, queen c2. This is an instructive move, this queen c2. The queen, throughout the whole Queen's Gambit, the queen is always well placed on c2. It's just where it belongs, basically. It can support queenside action later, and it's also looking at this diagonal. This is just where the queen belongs. By the way, we are looking at a Carlsbad structure. If you don't know what that is, well, you will eventually throughout chess experience. But I find it very funny that this can also be reached, this structure, through 1e4 and the Caro-Kann, for example. I mean, there's many openings that can lead to the structure. This is one. By the way, I also have a video about the Caro-Kann, a very short video, 5-minute video. So be sure to check that out in my openings playlist if you want to see that. But the structure I'm referring to can arise after these moves, and here just some moves. And we have the same structure, as you can see. It's mirrored, so black's playing white and white's playing black, but it's the same sort of it's exactly the same structure. So this is also very important in chess. We can study different openings by looking at, or we should, look at the structure more than the exact move order, because we can learn more from more conceptual and generalized concepts. But okay, so you have this knight f3, rook e8 is a typical move after castles. Knight f8 is by far the most played move. Looking at knight e6, perhaps knight g6. The knight is just nicely protecting the king here. We should go h3 in order to give our bishop some a safe square to drop to. bishop e6, we can go rook b1 here. This is one of the plans. And here white will go for a minority attack. If you don't know what that is, worry not, because I will showcase it right now. If black just makes some random moves like king h8, let's say, we go b4, king g8, a4, and the minority attack consists in white attacking these 3 pawns with these 2 pawns, and trying to create weaknesses in the structure. For example, if a random move again, we can trade on c6, and now black has to deal with this backwards, weak c6 pawn, for example, 92, and we can start hammering away at it straight away. Whenever this happens, if white does have the luxury to make all these moves, which in a real game doesn't happen, but this is the plan we want to go for. So if, let's say black doesn't want to allow this, he can take on b5, but then we just take back. And black now will have an isolated pawn on d5, which will be a target in the future. So it's never really that easy of a choice for the opposing side in these cases. But this is just one of the typical plans of the structure, is a minority attack. Right, so this is after, this is in the Queen's Gambit declined, after knight f6. A completely different way to treat this position is with c5, which is the towerish defense. Very popular in the beginning of the 20th century. We should take on d5 here now, and there's 2 captures. One is, well, e takes d5 is best. C takes d4 is quite an interesting gambit. We can take on d4, but a little bit more precise is queen e4 check first, provoking this move bishop d7, which is not actually such a desirable move for black. Now we take on d4, we take on d5, we take the queen, knight c6, knight f3, and after some development, it's clear that black has some compensation. But whether it's enough or not, I don't really believe that this is enough for equality. However, if you're playing blitz and you're in the mood for such endeavors, then this is, it's a fun way to play for black. If you like losing, just kidding. But e takes d5 is the most played move. We got knight f3 now, knight c6, and we can develop the bishop. It's always nice in these structures to develop the bishop to this diagonal if we can. Knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castles, and we're reaching a super standard position that will lead to an isolated queen's pawn. This can be reached throughout so many different openings, variations, and structures. It's really a very big family of structures, the isolated queen's pawn. After bishop g5 here takes. Here it is, the IQP. This structure usually dictates quite a positional game. Basically, the side that has the isolated pawn has to play actively and use the squares that the isolated pawn defends, which are usually very active squares for a knight or a bishop. And the side that's playing against it wants to just hammer away at this pawn, and also this knight usually. Rook c1 and putting pressure on this knight is usually the way to go. A very important concept here is that both sides want to control the square that's in front of the isolated pawn, because this pawn usually just wants to roll down, so we have to control the square in front of it and sort of blockade it. So that's why such a move like knight takes d4 would be bad, because now we just have a very firm blockade on the pawn. More common is h6, bishop e3, rook e8, and the game goes on, for example, with rook c1. Right, so this is in the towerish defense, which comes after c5. Now let's move away from the Queen's Gambit declined and look to c6, the Slav defense. This has a reputation of being a very solid opening, very hard to crack. Knight f3, knight f6, and knight c3. The order in which we develop these knights doesn't really matter immensely. And the Slav in itself is a whole world. There's so many options here. there's g6, e6, a6, dc4, bishop f5, bishop g4. Basically everything you can think of. Well, not literally, but okay. The most played move is definitely e6. It's also the move that I face most often in just games online or in real life. Very interesting is a6 with the idea of going b5. So if just e3, which is a very normal line, black goes b5, and this is interesting. Well, I usually respond here with b3, just keeping the tension, and this leads to very chaotic and interesting positions. But the way I like to play mostly against this is with c5, so as to prevent b5 in case black does go for it. We can go en passant. I hope I have some r/anarchy chess users watching this. They'll be proud. But this is the point of this move, and yeah, it sort of halts b5 for a moment. Then there's g6, where we should trade and go bishop f4. And we have quite a dull position in the sense that the position is so symmetrical. White has a slight advantage of having the extra move. And also black has committed his bishop to being fianchettoed, which might not be that useful. But yeah, these sort of Slav exchange variations are typically quite dull, quite slow. But if anyone is going to win them, it's usually white. And this can be seen in the Masters score. This has a very good score for white, and well, a lot of draws, but very few losses, or black wins. And then we have d takes c4, where we should go a4 first. One of the points of c6 is to go b5, so a4 prevents that, and after bishop f5, we go bishop e3, excuse me. After e6, we just take on c4, and this position still has quite a lot of theory. Very long lines can come from this, but in general, I feel like white already doesn't have to know that much here. The position, the structure plays itself, sort of. We just want a castle, and at some point try to not break, but push forward with e4. So aside from DC, the absolute main is e6. Now there's various ways to treat this. Bishop g5 is one. I prefer e3, preserving the bishop pair. And after knight bd7, the typical, the all-round, universally good move, queen c2. Queen is just really well placed here. You should know that by now. Bishop d6, bishop d3, castles. Now I feel like this sort of position is extremely popular, and it happens all the time. Maybe because black is a 2700 player, or because he is way below that, and just blitzed out the first 10 moves or 8 moves without really caring for white's play. But at this point, black has to be accurate, and he has to take on c4. And after bishop c4, has to go b5, and bishop b7, rook d1, queen c7. So you see black starting to throw some punches, and next he wants to go a6 and c5, or e5, depending. But you see, his bishops are already looking a little bit menacing, to say the least, and yeah, black's really gearing up for some serious counterplay here. However, a lot of players fall to the mistake of playing moves like rook e8, which is a move, but definitely not the move in this position. And against moves like this, we should really just go e4. And it's dangerous for black. It's dangerous in terms of strategical play, because you see, black can get really passive in such positions. It's really hard to get, well, b5 is just unthinkable now. And if not b5, he'll have to look for this. But now white has just opened the game, and his pieces are much better versed to such an opening of the game than black's. So in this position, black is really struggling. So that's why he has to hurry and take and go b5. Alright, so this is in the Slav, and the last thing we're going to look at, the last variation, is d takes c4. And I feel like this is the Queen's Gambit accepted. This is very popular, or quite popular, not extremely, but it is a well founded line in elite play, and I feel like this is also played very often in beginner level, but not really in intermediate. And the reason for this is that intermediate players steer away from this because they see, well, I'm giving up the center, and they know that the pawn is going to get taken back after very normal moves. You can't really defend the pawn. b5 is just a very bad move because of a4, and I just destroy your whole pawn chain. After this, b3. So they see that they're just dropping the pawn back, and now white has two center pawns against one of black's. So why would this be any good? And then the 2700 comes in the bar, and he goes like, no, I have like 500 analyzed lines of 30 moves, and I'll show you why black is doing just fine here. And sure enough, after c5 castles a6, we should go bishop b3 to sidestep b5 with getting a tempo. And now there's b5 and there's knight c6. There's also other moves, but knight c6 is more common. Knight c3, cd4, ed4. Bishop e7, bishop g5. And again, we have an IQP position, an isolated queen's pawn. I quite like white's prospects here because in this specific case, you see, we talked about how it's important to control the square in front of the IQP, and white is already very much well prepared to do so. So I like white's position here, and I feel like this is a good version of an IQP. So with this, we conclude the video on the Queen's Gambit, just under 18 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with probably more opening videos. And yeah, that's all for today. Take care and peace out.